No
For the
worries.
starters, though, we're going to see bans. Cursed Hollow and Battlefield of Eternity standard-ish maps are banned out, whereas we're going to be starting off on Tomb of the Spider Queen. This is a map the KT have historically done pretty reasonably on.
Yeah, and Tomb of the Spider Queen, ladies and gentlemen, this might be the battleground we needed to summon a very special hero, a hero that had been picked pre-Stukov patch quite a lot, but that is probably going to get picked way more after it because we are having a rework on the Zool. So the more rotations you need, the more wave clear you are required to have in order to succeed, the more likely the Necromancer is going to come out. And Tetra, how excited are you about the rework from what you've seen so far?
It's really interesting. We've been seeing a fair amount of it on and off throughout some of the regions, and it looks good. It looks really solid. The Poison Nova, very popular especially. We saw a lot of it last week, in fact. We saw a lot of it, in the last week, and it was pretty effective.
Yeah, very true. Poison Nova out of nowhere, it seems, suddenly back because Zool's damage overall has been amplified quite a bit, especially when he goes for that Cursed Strikes build, or at least some of the talents that involve Cursed Strike. It is so powerful, but you have a large variety of builds altogether now. Sometimes you have a more heavy focus on skeletons. You can even see a couple of Spectral Scythe talents because the cooldown reduction at level 4 is so powerful if you want to head and transition into the late game with Mortal Wounds. So there is many different paths of how to build Zool, and I think the hero is much more adaptive than he was before. You can now adjust to way more situations and enemy team comps than you could before.
So I'm checking on KT last week, aren't I?
Yep.
They did play Zool.
Okay, that's already nice.
They ran him with the Poison Nova build, as we saw him twice last time. We had Stitches, Zool, Tass, Valor, Ariel as their first game. And on the second game, it was Falstad and Nubarak, Nazebo, Uther, and Stitches. So a double Stitches from them.
There we go. Oh, Nazebo. Ah, my voodoo senses are tingling. That could also be a hero we could see here on this map. I would actually love to see Nazebo's win rate in China, because I can't recall the last time it was shown.
I'm not sure, but Master Lee can probably tell us, as I will check for you.
Tetra, the investigator. I love it. But for now, KT is sticking to the more traditional guns. They go for Uther and a Nubarak. Of course, that is stuns galore, basically. You have so much lockdown here, solid healing. Nubarak now more than ever benefits from Uther's armor because he was nerfed a little bit in terms of survivability, losing a little bit of max HP. And he also needs to get a little bit closer now if he wants to cast his cocoon. So Uther's help is really appreciated. And immediately we see that double support hyper carry for ESTAR, which they're so known for.
Indeed. Nazebo has a 42% win rate in HGC China.
Okay, that's acceptable. Not as good as I would like it to be, but acceptable.
He's actually the third worst specialist in HGC China. Sergeant Hammer has a 0% win rate. Abatha has a 16, and Nazebo has a 42. Everyone else has above a 50%, but this might not have all of the games by the looks of it.
I think Abathur must have the worst win rate in China by far out of any major HGC region, because he's such a contested and such a well-performing pick in EU, Korea, and NA. It's crazy.
Yeah. Medivh actually has a 5-0 win-loss ratio, apparently. Probius has a 1-0 in this phase.
There we go.
I think this is just this phase. Yeah, this is just this phase. Yeah.
All right.
No, that's everything. That's all of it. Wow. Okay.
So we see the Beetle sitting in almost a 50% win ratio, and that is very impressive because think back to phase 1 Tetra when Nubarak was still very good, but just not picked in China, and he was sitting at a 23-25 win ratio, and that has changed a lot.
Yeah, over 50 games.
Yeah.
And almost 50% win ratio in a professional Heroes of the Storm tournament. That's impressive. KT still going back to that Stitches that they ran last week as well. They really like it. He's such a popular tank in the other regions, yet we didn't see him in either of our last 2 games.
True.
Last 2 series.
He was completely ignored. And you know which other hero has kind of resurged from nowhere? It was ETC. ETC, we saw him in Korea. We saw him in Europe. I mean, Breeze Fnatic is just formidable ETC player indeed. But I would love for China to sort of catch up on that and maybe implement some more ETC and maybe some more Murden in general into their drafts.
Yeah, I would like to see that. Ragnaros sneaking his way into the draft for ESTAR and bringing out the Tyrael as their only tank. So the Ragnaros, good for their solo laner here. And here comes the Nazebo against KT. It's very much continuing to stick with those heroes that they ran last week. You need to stick with some old favorites here.
Yeah, I like it. I gotta say, I do like the team comp for KT, because when you pick a Nazebo, you want to make sure that you have a strong and stable early game as well, because otherwise, you're probably not going to make it to level 20, which is, of course, where he shines at. Yep. So, going for something like a Nubrek, Uther, really keeping your early game rotations safe, and maybe even turning on the aggression on the enemy team, can maybe buy enough time for Nazebo to reach his final form.
You also want to make sure that you're in a position where you can get to the late game, and as such, you want to make sure your opponents do not have a rush to end the game composition. And the fact that ESTAR have picked a Ragnaros, it's very unlikely they will be doing so.
That is very true. That is very true indeed, and that's why I like Nazebo as a last pick here, because oftentimes when you pick him first or second, then the enemy team is going to do exactly what Tetra said. They pick a lot of pushing, a lot of wave clear, and they will take down Ford after Ford, and all of a sudden you're going to find yourself in a lot of problems when you are the Nazebo team. So both teams with a really solid draft in my opinion. We have the super solid double support comp for ESTAR, nothing new here, but that's just where they feel comfortable. That's just where they thrive. On the other hand, KT, as you said, almost the same team comp as last week. They did pretty well with it, so hard to say who's going to make it here just by looking at the drafts alone. We're going to find out in a bit though, as the teams are getting ready to enter the arena. ESTAR versus KT. Ladies and gentlemen, in game number 1 between those two teams, ESTAR and KT, we're going to see the favorite coming into this best of 2, ESTAR in the blues. We have FZ on the Tyrael, China #1 on the Oriole, Good on his Vala, Kid on the Tassadar, and last but not least, Ooze on his Ragnaros.
Whereas on the right-hand side, it is going to be KT with T-Dye on the Uther, Neptune on the Anubarak, Fury on Taika, Seeing on Nazebo, and Butcher on that Stitches.
Let's not forget about Seeing Tetra here. When the statistics, the overall statistics from last week were shown, Seeing for the very first time made it to the top 3 spots in terms of damage done on average, I think it was. And if he performs just like that, if he has a good day on the Nazebo, they might cause a couple of issues for ESTAR, because it's not easy to play that guy against that guy in the late game.
Indeed, and I will say here quickly, one of these teams is about to ruin a ratio, because KT have not lost with Butcher in their team so far in the entirety of HGC China. ESTAR, since FZ has been playing in the team instead of Tumi, have not lost with Tyrael. So one of these teams is going to ruin a ratio. And that always makes me unhappy, because I like those really big old stats of, we have never lost with this, let's pick this. One of these teams is about to lose something. Let's see which one it is. Tyrael jumping in, playing a little bit aggressive, takes a little bit of overkill damage, gets hooked in, takes some tower shots actually, but will tank his way through and survive.
Yeah, and I mean, you just mentioned the two warriors, and they faced each other in that short engagement here right off the bat. And speaking of FZ's Tyrael, I just gotta say that it has been the most impressive hero in his roster so far. The amount of good Sangs he dropped, the amount of really smart engages he looked for was just very, very impressive now. He's jumping in with the Eldrain's Might, trying to protect China #1, but he's of course fully energized, which means he's going to have a big old heal ready to keep multiple people alive. But look at the poison damage here, coming in on Vala. Good, taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, he ate all the frogs. Luckily, Energy was able to energy the shield. Were able to sustain him back through to just under half his just over half his hit points. So still looking pretty good here. 4-man rotation, very interesting. I do like the whole swap we've seen these days. Hook, stun, not enough to get.
Yeah, I like what FC is doing here as well. Like the moment Butcher catches someone with his hook, FC immediately uses the Eldoran's Might and teleports right next to them, so his body can cause a little bit of body blocking, excuse me, and of course he has those shields ready to add additional burst healing. But China #1 in trouble. Are they going to get him?
Ariel, the most vulnerable hero to have been hooked so far, but Tychus this time wasn't here. If he had been here, the damage output would have been enough to kill it.
Yep.
Great hooks consistently by Butcher here, but again, not enough for a kill. But like I was saying before, all the action happened. Good, fleeing for his life. We'll get out. I like the rotations we've seen these days of putting the solo lane in the top lane. It is interesting because it's easier and safer to rotate up to the top lane than it is to rotate to bot lane. As such, for KT, it's a little bit better because they have more opportunities to hook in a less safe position against ESTAR.
That's actually true. Very good observation here, for sure. Now, we also see that Seeing on the Nazeebo here, quite unusually, doesn't want to rotate, it seems. He's stuck in that solo lane against Ragnos, but on the same page, it is basically a very safe thing to do early because you're not running the risk of getting caught and thus missing stacks altogether. So he's basically content with just farming a couple of stacks, farming a couple of minions, and he's all setting up and gearing up for the late game so far. 15 gems, that's definitely when you want to try and pay.
And this is why we see Nazeebo not going with the big voodoo, sticking with the more standard talent, the spiders. And the fact is, this is just a safe talent. You don't know how much you're going to stack. You don't know how much pressure you're going to be put under. Yep. So this is always the safer talent to pick. If you're not sure, you're going to be able to rotate consistently for a long time. Nazeebo is taken out by Rag, who's caught in the zombie wall, though. Can we see a revenge kill as Butcher moves in? The overkill damage is dropped. Kid coming in from the side, drops the shield, speed boost on Ooze as they're attempting to
wow.
Ooze the shield from Tyrael and the heal, and he's able to get out, and they turn around onto T-Die, who they will pick up. No, they won't! T-Die! Nope, finally is killed off by the Smite, and that is going to be 2 kills to 0. Going over to ESTAR there in that little scuffle, and those are actually the first 2 kills of the game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Ooze on the Ragnos was spamming pings and cries of help. Yeah, exactly, in team communications for sure, because he was surrounded by a lot of mean-looking guys, but in the nick of time, Tassadar and Oriel arrived to keep him safe. That must feel very frustrating for KT, because not only did they lose Nazeebo, they also lost another person in the chase process. And Nazeebo, of course, when he dies early on, it's especially bitter, because he won't be able to farm up, he won't be able to get more stacks under his belt. And now with the first web viewer phase, it might be ESTAR's time to snowball out of control. They once again try to go after Ooze. They shouldn't really put too much efforts in this though, because otherwise they might neglect the base defense.
Indeed, and we do see the full split up in terms of both the push and the defense, but bot lane not going to get a huge amount of push and soak because Rag has to be back. So this defense will at least end quite quickly. However, top, that full assault, the double Angel, Valor are pushing in aggressively. Good, takes a lot of damage, got hit by the spiders, so does take a little bit of damage here already. The Nazeebo stacked up, pretty easy talent to stack, so not so bad. Good, dropping some counter damage onto Seeing to try and drive away this defense and guarantees them the fall.
Yeah, this is already starting to look mighty rough for KT here. Not only did they just lose a couple of structures, they're getting further and further behind. And that, like when you fall behind on Tomb of the Spreader Queen and you are nowhere near to get level 10, you might as well not turn in at all, even if you have enough gems, because you're not going to be able to push in against heroic abilities anyway. So KT is going to have to wait even longer until they can make something work.
Yeah, they are on the back foot now. To be fair, they do have the ultimate comeback hero in the form of Stitches. I would love to continue to see them do what some of the other teams have been doing and make the adjustment on Stitches at level 16, if they survive that long, and go for Fishing Hook to give them that comeback potential. And I would like to see them go for Gorge now to give them that comeback potential, because, yeah, Aegis, yes, Sanctification, that doesn't get the person out of the rough position that they are in. We also see, like we said, the Sanctification, the Crystal Aegis, Forceful, Sulphurous Smash, and Mysterious. Either one would work here. I don't think either one's going to get more value than the other. We actually have Hand of Protection from Uther, so you're not giving him any more value with Reign of Vengeance on the Guardian Ancient Kings. So he's fine going for whichever one he wants here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the strong argument in favor of Strafe these days is normally that you fill up the energy meter even more for Ariel, which is always a nice thing to have, but is it really needed when there's a Tassadar in the mix? A little bit questionable. I think both work fine, as you said. Probably the Reign of Vengeance would have a little bit more synergy with the Sulphurous Smash. It would also make up for the lack of CC in the first place because of Tyrael, Tassadar, and Oriel, so I wouldn't really mind seeing that one as well. But I think what really like what ESTAR is trying to do here. They're trying to wait for the level 10 heroics as well, because let's face it, Strafe could be really good against the Cocoon, just in case. So we have yet to see the Locust Swarm, by the way. It got buffed after the
we have seen
patch.
it. We have seen it. We have
oh,
seen
you
it
have
when
seen
you
it?
weren't here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, did it do well?
It did sneak its way in. It was alright. It gave him the extra tankiness he needed. I can't remember if it won or lost though, so I will check that in a bit.
I mean, personally, I do like it now much more than I did before. Like the healing, the damage, it all looks so much more solid than before.
Yes, especially considering that the Cocoon looks slightly less impressive, so you get the nice comparison there. Nice use of Force Walls so far by Kid just to keep the pressure onto this lane and continuously make Stitch's life a little bit more difficult, and now preventing the retreats, just really cutting off the angles and the options of KT here. Same with the Zombie Wall, they are just causing positioning issues for KT as much as possible as this second Web Weaver wave pushes into the mid lane. They want to try and get this key.
Yeah, here comes the Gargantuan, here comes the Odin, and it's extremely hard to push into that. With the zoning, the Gargantuan provides the strong damage, the Odin provides. It's going to be hard for ESTAR to make it work, but they use the Sanctification, and they're about to damage this keep even more, but they seem to pull back for now. Don't want to get hooked either. Ragnaros not here anyway, so, ooh. Okay, that might be a pick they needed.
They got the Gorge, they're moving forward. There's the issue of taking the Strafe over the Rain of Vengeance. Aegis is dropped, and can he still use it? Yes, he can! The teleport just in time. A noob just missing the timing to get the stun to prevent that.
Wow.
And Tyrael able to escape by the skin of his angelic teeth.
That almost backfired so brutally there. The Crystal Aegis could have actually interfered and stopped the Eldrin's Might flash animation, but luckily for ESTAR, it was just there when it was needed, so no Tyrael victims, no casualties to complain about here. And it looks like ESTAR, they're willing to utilize their level advantage to the max. They have one more talent available. They are trying to clear this boss. It's a risky endeavor, though, if I might want to say that, because this boss pit has been the, you know, the platform of many a throw.
And the fact is, though, there's going to be no contention because KT want to focus on turning it because they have 119 gems and they would like to have less, please. And they will actually be able to get the turn in. But the boss is still captured by ESTAR. Tyrael able to delay for quite a while, though. Very nicely done.
And I think we can answer that question by Ellender, by the way. He asked if Tyrael even has teeth, but if you took a look at the emojis in-game, and you give it, or you type in the laughing emote, you definitely see a couple of happy teeth and a tongue as well.
So. Yeah. Also, if you played Diablo 3, yes, Tyrael most certainly does have teeth.
There we go. Maybe not in his angelic form, but definitely in his human form. Nailed it.
Exactly. Still Tyrael. Still Tyrael. Still counts. As we do see ESTAR continuing to push in a little bit aggressively. The boss was cleared up quite nicely. Web Weaver assisted with that, but these Web Weavers have just been kind of wrecked. So they're not getting any actual push value. They're de-pushing a little, and they assisted with that boss. It was... But right now, that's just a lot of gems burned, but at least they got rid of some of them.
Exactly. That gave them a little bit of breathing room. The Web Weavers also helped defending against the boss for sure, but look at middle and top. Both keeps for KT are already severely damaged, and if there's one good engage by ESTAR, they can follow up with a Molten Core and then take things to the core right of the get-go. Nice blind hook here by Butcher. There could have been someone in the bush, but ESTAR too smart to get baited by that.
Indeed, and ESTAR stealing away the Bruiser camp. They're in full control. KT playing immensely safe, and this is what you can do with Stitches. You just play safe and hope. Hope that someone's out of position when you throw out that blind hook. Hope you can grab something. Until then, it's all about the wave clear. Just clear as best you can. Try and hold back. Make great use of Zombie Wall. Liberal use of Gargantuan. It's not just for team fights. Gargantuan isn't just for Christmas. Use it for your defense as well. And there's the hook. Unfortunately, it hit a non-hero. A noob from behind, dropping the cocoon, and they're moving in, looking for Valor. But they do have a backup target. If they can't get the kill, they're turning around away from the Molten Core. So Furious lands on the Nubarak, which means Tyrael has some more freedom as the Nubarak's already taken out. And Tyrael able to get out easily. This keep is going to go down.
Oh, the Valor was gorged, but there was not enough follow-up damage. The Crystal Aegis is on point as well. He was also slowed down by Ragnaros' Molten Core, so there was no value to be obtained by Butcher this time around. The keep is going to fall, and 16 is going to be unlocked here for ESTAR. They're in full swing here. And I don't think there's a lot KT will be able to do anytime soon here. This is more and more starting to get out of control here for ESTAR. More ability power, by the way, if I'm not mistaken here at level 16 for Oriel.
You are not mistaken, and that's fair enough. Jump it on Tassadar, you get the good Storm value. Jump it on Ragnaros, you get Q value. Drop it on Valor, multi-shot value, and that actually gives more energy, and this is what we usually end up seeing when compared with a Valor.
Can you use Oriel's trade on a Molten Core Ragnaros, or does it disappear?
It disappears.
And you can't recast it on him? Because that would be insane energy gain.
It would, which is why I assume you can't. Gorge to interrupt the strafe. They're going for a kill here.
Good.
Ariel. No, Aegis. And Valor this time is finished off. They move in.
Oh, they get another one
as well. Trying to body block. They hook in the Ragnaros. This time the Aegis is down. And KT are like, okay, we might be fighting off more than we can chew here. They're pulling back. So Furious Smash lands on Stitches, who is cleansed out though. Uther in a little bit out of position though. Neptune dropping low shield. Doesn't even need it. Still alive. And Uther, unfortunately, not in the best position. He's walled off from 2 angles. Holy Ground and Force Wall preventing his escape. He will go down, making that a 1-for-1 trade.
There's only so much one Paladin can tank, and unfortunately there was no escape out of that sticky situation. But I gotta give it to KT. That was a nice hook. Nice execution as well. Ariel was a little bit too late to the party to save the Vala. She is still dead. No, she responds at the very moment I say it, but she's gonna have a long way to walk. But at the same time, KT, they have to defend multiple fronts at the same time, and they still don't have their main support. So they're gonna drop one more keep in the bottom lane. Top keep would have been a little bit more valuable because of that boss lane, but still, 2 keeps down is a very dangerous spot to be in. Just think of Ragnaros, double Molten Core locations now, right in the base of KT, and they're going for the core.
They are going for it, and the fact is Valor is back. Uther has just respawned. It's going to be a full 5-man team fight for this core. As the Cocoon has already dropped the Tyrion, they turn it onto Ariel straight away. Molten Core drop, trying to get Butcher. There's Molten Swing misses. This is good news for KT. They can still defend this as they turn onto Tyrael. He pops out the Cocoon. Holy Ground, though, giving Tyrael some breathing room as he moves back to his team. He still has Sanctification. If they want to all in this, which it looks like they do, so Furious Smash kills off Stitches. There's the Sanct. They focus it down, and there is nothing KT can do. That is GG. And ESTAR take game number 1.
And they just made it look so easy too. They always seem to have an answer to the sort of pick-com style that KT brought to the table here. It was not enough for them to snowball into the late game. Nazeebo had very little to no effect in that game overall. And I gotta say that ESTAR, not only did they look good individually, but their team comp also made a lot of sense in my opinion.